Have you ever planned a party and ended up having a complete existential crisis instead? No? Well, clearly you've never been Mrs. Dalloway. Let's imagine you wake up one bright June morning in London, the air smells of fresh flowers, the sky is promising, and you decide, yes, today's the day I'll throw the most splendid party. You've got your guest list, your flowers, your elegant dress ready to charm the room. But somewhere between buying roses and greeting an old friend, you start thinking about all your life choices, your first love, the meaning of existence, and, oh yes, there's also a man across town slowly losing his mind after the war. And somehow, all of that fits into just one single day. Welcome to Virginia Woolf's Mrs. Dalloway, a book where a day in the life means a lifetime's worth of emotions, regrets, and sharp observations on the human mind. Our story begins with Clarissa Dalloway, the high society hostess with a penchant for throwing classy London parties. She steps out into the morning air to buy flowers, because, as she tells herself, she'll buy the flowers herself. Now, you'd think that's a harmless, simple act. But for Clarissa, this stroll through the streets of London isn't just about flowers. No, it's a trigger for a full-blown internal reflection marathon. Her thoughts flow like a river that occasionally gets hijacked by other rivers. And then suddenly we're thinking about someone else entirely. Because here's the thing, Virginia Woolf doesn't walk you in a straight line from one thought to another. She lets you leap from the mind of Clarissa to the mind of a stranger passing on the street, and then to a completely different character who hasn't even entered the story yet. The transitions are so smooth you almost don't realize you've switched perspectives until you're knee-deep in someone else's memories. So back to Clarissa. As she's planning her party, all these old memories start bubbling up. Chief among them is Peter Walsh, the man she didn't marry. She remembers his charm, and well, also his failings. Peter was a man who had these big feelings but just couldn't quite figure out what to do with them. In the end, she turned him down for the steadier, more reliable Richard Dalloway, a man who didn't exactly sweep her off her feet, but did offer her a stable life. Peter, for his part, has been away in India, and, wouldn't you know it, he just happens to arrive in London that very day and turns up in Clarissa's drawing room. Now, if this were a romantic comedy, this is probably where you'd expect dramatic music, a sudden rainstorm, and the rekindling of old flames. But Woolf's world isn't a rom-com. It's more like real life, where the past doesn't just disappear, but it doesn't neatly resolve either. While Clarissa is busy navigating her social calendar and all those memories, Woolf also takes us over to a completely different household, that of Septimus Warren Smith and his wife, Lucrezia. Septimus is a young war veteran, deeply traumatized by the death of his friend Evans during the European War. He's hearing voices, Evans's voice, and struggling honestly to reconcile with reality. Septimus is, in many ways, Clarissa's shadow self. He too is caught in the looping spiral of thought, but while Clarissa finds ways to live with her memories, Septimus is being swallowed by his. His wife, Lucrezia, is desperate to help him, but she's an outsider in London, an Italian woman who feels alienated from English society. Back in Clarissa's world, the day ticks forward. There are errands, brief encounters, stray moments where she observes others, moments where Woolf slips us into entirely different minds just for a heartbeat before returning to Clarissa. Sometimes a single passing thought becomes a doorway to a new character. That's one of Woolf's gifts. She turns the seemingly mundane into a rich web of interconnected consciousness. And then there's Miss Kilman. Clarissa really doesn't like Miss Kilman. There's no polite way to put it. To Clarissa, Miss Kilman embodies everything oppressive. In her physical presence, her manner, even her moral convictions. At one point, Clarissa thinks,
"Love and religion," thought Clarissa, going back into the drawing room, tingling all over. How detestable they are. For now that the body of Miss Kilman was not before her, it overwhelmed her. The idea.
The repetition in that thought is pure Woolf, letting emotion echo the way it does in our real mental monologues. Throughout the day, the narrative weaves between Clarissa and Septimus. Their lives don't cross in a direct, dramatic way, but thematically they mirror each other, each haunted by thoughts and experiences they can't quite silence. The difference? Clarissa survives hers. Septimus doesn't. By evening, Septimus has taken his own life, a decision that echoes through the novel's conclusion. Finally, the party. Clarissa's grand event. Guests arrive, from the flamboyant Sally Seton, an old friend from her youth, to the arrogant Lady Bradshaw. Peter is there too, watching her, thinking about her, still caught in the memory of the woman he once loved. And even here, amidst the chatter and glitter, Clarissa's thoughts are still shadowed by the awareness of life's fragility, sharpened by the news of Septimus's death. And that's it, a single day. But in that day, Virginia Woolf gives us an entire lifetime. And the book that captures all of this in exquisite flowing prose, Mrs. Dalloway, first published in 1925 by Virginia Woolf. Here's the thing. Mrs. Dalloway is not a plot-driven novel. If you come to it expecting a traditional story arc, you'll find yourself wondering when the big event is going to happen. The power of the book isn't in what happens, but in how it's told. Virginia Woolf uses a combination of third-person limited and omniscient narration so seamlessly that the transitions are almost invisible. One moment you're inside Clarissa's head, the next you're inside the mind of a stranger who passes her on the street, and it all feels natural, as if that's simply how reality works. Her camera zooms in, lingers on a character's inner life, then zooms out to the larger scene, then in again on someone else. Sometimes the pivot is triggered by something external, an object, a sound, a passing figure. Sometimes it happens entirely in the conscious mind, a thought leading to another thought, leading to a memory, leading to a different character. And the stream of consciousness style? It's Woolf at her sharpest. She captures the human mind's messy, non-linear, often contradictory thought process better than almost any other writer. The mind doesn't think in clean paragraphs. It jumps, loops, contradicts itself. Woolf embraces that, right down to her punctuation, which often mimics the rhythm of real thought. One thing I found striking is the way Woolf balances economy of words with repetition for emphasis. Yes, there are long sentences, but they aren't bloated. They're deliberate, each repetition intensifying the feeling. The book also gives a subtle but rich portrait of women in different social positions, from the privileged Clarissa to the socially awkward Miss Kilman to the foreign and isolated Lucrezia. Each woman navigates her own constraints, her own version of invisibility or limitation. And then there's the parallel between Clarissa and Septimus. They never meet, but their stories are twinned. Two lives shaped by the interplay of memory, trauma, and the need to either endure or escape the mind's labyrinth. Clarissa chooses life even with its disappointments. Septimus chooses death, unable to bear the weight of his thoughts. Several themes stood out to me. The passage of time. The entire novel unfolds in a single day, but past and present are constantly overlapping. Time isn't a straight line here. It's fluid, shaped by memory and association. So, mental health and trauma. Septimus's storyline is honestly one of the most poignant portrayals of PTSD in early 20th century literature. Woolf, who struggled with mental illness herself, handles it with such empathy and depth. The inner versus outer life. The tension between what we show the world and what we keep inside really runs through every character. Clarissa, for example, maintains the perfect hostess image while quietly carrying unspoken regrets and doubts. Social class and gender. The novel quietly critiques the rigid class structure of post-war England and the limitations it places on women, both in high society and on its margins. Every character yearns in some way to be understood. But Woolf shows how rare and fragile true understanding can be. Virginia Woolf, who lived from 1882 to 1941, was one of the central figures of the Bloomsbury Group, a circle of intellectuals, writers, and artists in early 20th century England. She's considered one of the most important modernist authors, known for her experiments with narrative structure and her deep psychological insight. Woolf battled severe depression throughout her life, and in the end, she took her own life in 1941. But in her writing, she transformed her acute sensitivity into art, capturing the texture of consciousness with unmatched precision. Mrs. Dalloway, along with works like To the Lighthouse and Orlando, cemented her place in literary history. This novel, in particular, is often praised for its bold structure, emotional depth, and its ability to turn a single ordinary day into something, well, extraordinary. So, if you're the kind of reader who loves fast-paced, plot twist-heavy books, this might not be your cup of tea. But if you want to step into the minds of unforgettable characters, if you want prose that makes you feel like you're thinking alongside the author, and if you're willing to slow down and savor the beauty of the sentence itself, then Mrs. Dalloway is an experience worth having. It's a reminder that every single day is full of hidden worlds, in our own minds and in the minds of everyone we pass on the street. Hey, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you're interested in diving deeper into this book, I've left some links down in the description. You can use it to grab yourself a copy and keep the adventure going. And if you're in the mood for more great reads, don't go just yet. Click on one of the videos popping up right now that I think you'll love. And don't forget to give this review a like, leave a comment, or even subscribe if you'd like to see more. Every bit of support helps us grow this little community of book lovers. See you in the next one.